We're Hassani and Danielle Pettiford, and we're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
I was very frustrated. I became very disconnected, very jaded and cold.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission, to change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships. This is the Couples Academy Show.
Season 2.
To be back.
And we're glad to have each and every one of you with us. So listen, we want to make sure that you are connected to us, right? We want to make sure that you are a part of our conversation. They can't hear us. They can't hear us. They can't hear us. No.
Okay,
you guys can't hear us? No sound.
No sound?
Dude, is it us or is it you? There's no sound? Can't hear?
There's no audio. There you go.
Now?
Somebody said, there you go.
We have sound?
Rashawn, thank you. No
can you
audio
guys hear
for
us?
me. JD can hear us, right? I think some folks can hear and some folks can't. Guys, real quick, just if you can hear us, say you can hear us.
Press the right buttons.
There it goes. There it goes. We can hear you now.
All
We're
right.
good. Let's go.
Sometimes I wonder, is it us?
I don't know.
Is it you?
It's all good.
But we're back. All right, here we go, guys. Listen. There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot going on in the news, and we want to have a conversation with you about what's happening. But before we do it, we just want to connect with everybody. So make sure you first like, share, and subscribe. Get the word out. We want everybody to be a part of this. Now, just know that when you like the page, when you like it, that means that you are voting for us and you allow us to really appear high in the algorithms so that other people get to experience what you get to experience every single morning. So that's all we ask you to do. We put all this content together. We come on here and we do everything that we need to do to give you what you need. All we ask is that you click like and that you click subscribe.
And that you share,
Boom.
share, because that actually helps us as well.
All right. So let's welcome the people here.
Well, I want to welcome everybody to the show. I forget. So it's been so long. We have broken our rhythm. Okay. So good morning, Tora. Good morning, Vashawn, Louisa, Clarence, Vashawn. Again, Clarence, good morning, Dwayne, JD, hello. JD's been waiting. Can I just pause on JD? JD, you have been waiting. He has reached out. When is the show going to start? And I just want to say, God bless you. Your son is coming along looking good. Beautiful, beautiful son that he just birthed. So, he and his wife just birthed. And I'm so happy and proud of you. So I'm so glad to see you this morning. Good morning, JGDD. Good morning, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us. We are going to jump right into the topic today.
Yes, today we're talking about marriage in the news. There's so many things that are happening, and you know what?
We had a good conversation about that this morning.
We certainly did. And you know what? The reality is we have to have somebody who speaks to the topic. So we want to engage you in a conversation. Now, the first thing up is if you've been not under a rock, you know that there is a high profile couple who's going through a very public divorce, Bill and Melinda Gates, and it's been all over the news. And we figured, you know what, we're Couples Academy, we got to talk about it. So let's watch this quick clip to hear a synopsis of their situation, and then we're going to get into a conversation.
After nearly 3 decades of marriage, Bill and Melinda Gates have filed for divorce, ending what some consider one of the most consequential marriages in American history, each tweeting a joint statement saying, "After a great deal of thought and a lot of work on our relationship, we have made the decision to end our marriage," adding, "We no longer believe we can grow together as a couple in this next phase of our lives." The brief statement also noting their 3 incredible children and their philanthropic foundation, saying, "We continue to share a belief in that mission and will continue our work together at the foundation." Most recently, their foundation has been focused on the fight against COVID-19, pledging almost $2 billion to speed up the vaccine effort.
Well, our foundation has been one of the very few funders for this new mRNA approach because it'll help not just for COVID with malaria and HIV as well.
The couple met in 1987, shortly after Melinda joined Microsoft as a product manager. In the Netflix series Inside Bill's Brain, Melinda joked about Bill's methodical approach to romance.
He had to make a decision One day I walked in his bedroom and his whiteboard had the pros and the cons of getting married.
In January, Melinda opened up to Savannah about life during quarantine and what it was like sharing housework with Bill.
Neither of us are very good at cooking, and so we are both doing a lot of microwaving.
The couple's oldest daughter, Jennifer, posting that her parents' divorce is a challenging stretch for the whole family. The Gates split follows the 2019 divorce of another Seattle-based billionaire, Jeff Bezos, who ended his 25-year marriage to Mackenzie. She walked away with more than $35 billion, immediately making her one of the world's richest people. So far, no word on how divorce will impact Bill Gates' estimated $124 billion fortune.
There's absolutely not a template for a divorce of this magnitude. And add to that how big and complicated the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is. We haven't seen anything like this before.
It's also unclear how it could impact the so-called giving pledge the couple helped create, a collection of wealthy families who've committed to giving a majority of their wealth to charitable causes. Hoda?
Aaron, you mentioned Bill Gates' massive fortune. I think you said it was $124 billion. So what are some of the assets that they may be dividing?
Yeah, Hoda, well, their assets are extensive. For example, the couple owns a vast quantity of American farmland, reportedly considered to be the largest farm owners in the country. They also have a number of properties across 5 different states, including a palatial mansion in Washington, some 66,000 square feet, reportedly to be worth $127 million. It's also worth noting that Washington is considered a community property state, meaning that any assets acquired during the course of the marriage are considered equally owned by both partners. Hoda.
All right, a lot to work out there. All right, Aaron, thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Find your favorite recipes, celebrities.
Yeah, man, there's a lot going on there, right?
It is.
Danielle, if you divorce me, you may get about $300, a bike in the back, because the way my checking and savings account is set up, it's just not going to work out for you. So we might as well just stick together and make this thing work. But the reality is the impact that marriage has on a family,
He was scared I was going to comment. That's why he kept moving on so fast, right? You saw my face.
You can't squeeze water out of a rock. You can only get what you can get.
He said, I better keep talking. Let me keep talking. Go ahead. What's your point?
But here's the deal. Like, marriage has such a tremendous impact. Now, we know that there's obviously an emotional cost, a relational cost. But in this particular case, there's a huge financial cost. There's a huge financial burden. This is a power couple who has dedicated their lives to a purpose bigger and greater than themselves. They've dedicated their time, energy, and effort. And then when they go through crisis, it impacts just everything and everyone around them.
I mean, I think, a high profile case like this, where we're talking billions of dollars, right? I mean, you're not going to be broke. You're probably okay. I don't really think there's anything that you cannot afford to do when you're living in the billions. I think the big issue is when we scale this down to our realities, because what they going through, we don't have a concept for it. As Hoda said in the interview, she said there's not even a template for this level of divorce. But what about the regular folks? What about us that actually, when we do divorce, it is catastrophic? It is splitting all of our assets. It's splitting children that are not grown. See, their children are grown. And that was one of the things that Bill Gates' wife did. They both agreed to wait till their children were grown and handled. They probably would have been divorced, right? So they put other things before themselves to do this the way that they did it. Plus, they've got endless coins, okay? Those of us over here who are living, making ends every week and got to cash a check and split it and pay the bills and all these things that are the reality to most people, that's when it becomes catastrophic.
Now, let's talk about this, because there's several points that we can hit in the story. But to your point, the last thing that was mentioned was they wanted to wait till the kids were old enough, till they were adults or grown, before they split. But I will tell you, when we talk to a tremendous amount of children, and I'm not talking about 18 or younger, we're talking about early 20s, mid 20s, early 30s, when their parents divorce, of course, at a certain age, you're able to deal with it, but there's still a significant blow. I mean, even the children came out and said, this is going to be a very hard thing for us to deal with. We're in pain as a result of this because their very identity, their lifestyle, everything that they've done has been attached to a mom and a dad, a mother and a father. And the fact that they're now splitting has an impact on children's identity, their sense of self, their sense of security, all the things that they're struggling with in that particular relationship.
It's interesting. I mean, my parents divorced when I was 7. So, it's a different experience having your parents divorced when you're young, still very much traumatic for a child to lose your parents anyway. But I do hear adults say all the time that when their parents divorced, even when they were in their 30s and 40s, it was just traumatic for them. Like they never thought that their parents were divorced.
Absolutely. All right, guys, listen, we want to engage you in the conversation. We're talking about Bill and Melinda Gates and their divorce and what impact that has not only on their children, but on themselves, on their purpose, on their destiny. There's a lot to unpack in this story, even what contributed to the divorce. Yeah. So we'll be right back. This is the Couples Academy show. See you in just a second. Have you been struggling with issues that have gone unresolved for significant amounts of time? Are you desperate for change but don't know exactly what to do? Well, Couples Academy has the answer. The Gottman Relationship Checkup is a clinical tool that scientifically evaluates relationship strengths and challenges through a comprehensive assessment based upon 40 years of research. With it, each partner completes the assessment in 5 key sections: friendship and intimacy, trust and safety, conflict management, shared meaning, and individual areas. Sign up today for the Better Marriage Club and receive exclusive access to the private Facebook group to get your questions answered and your problems solved. Access to our marriage library of live seminars. Watch the Couples Academy Daily Show. Call the help hotline for laser coaching. Get our weekly action guides and receive a private one-on-one call with one of our marriage coaches. To join the Better Marriage Club, simply text MARRIAGE to 973-490-4668. Join today. Your marriage deserves it. Technical difficulties, because this is what happens whenever we do a show. So hopefully you can see us, but we're going to continue the conversation and just go with the flow. One of the other things that we want to talk about regarding this divorce, it's been crystal clear that they said that there was no way back from this, that they've reached a place where they can't restore their relationship. And oftentimes we hear many people say, you know what, we're divorcing. There's no way back. And oftentimes the reasons why people divorce, they can be worked out. I mean, we've dealt with some very serious situations and some major cases that people were able to restore their relationship from. But in this particular situation, it seems like one of the contributing factors, in addition to what was going on inside of their relationship, were outside influences. And so this is why we say it is critically important to really be careful with who you associate with, because as they say, birds of a feather flock together. And in this particular case, we know that Jeffrey Epstein was a major influencer and associate of Bill Gates. Now, if anybody knows about Jeffrey Epstein, this is an individual who has been known for pedophilia, sex trafficking, being involved with younger children, and actually, for lack of a better term, selling people, transporting young children to the elite. And any association with a person like that, an assumption would be made, well, How could you be coochie crunching friends with somebody like that if you're not co-signing their behavior or involved in some way? And there were several meetings that Epstein had with Bill and Melinda Gates. And after those meetings, Melinda was very, very concerned and wanted that relationship to come to an end immediately. And he maintained that relationship for several years. We know that there were times when Bill got away and spent some time with Epstein at his Manhattan apartment for several days. And so they had a very, very close relationship. So, I mean, that is a contributing factor to this divorce.
Have you ever heard the term guilty by association?
Without a shadow of a doubt.
I learned that term when I was about 13 years old, walked into a convenience store with a friend of mine to go and get some chips or something like that. And the guy comes from behind the counter and he says, no, get out, to my friend, right? You steal. She had come in that store and stolen before. I had never stolen from this man, but guess what he did after he hollered and screamed at her and told her to get out? He turned to me and said, and you get out too. You're guilty by association.
Wow.
This is why I choose my friends like I choose my fruit. Thank you, Erykah Badu. Okay? Because it's important. And when you look at your spouse and you start to see them surrounding themselves with questionable people and who have questionable behavior, that can become a problem. So obviously his wife, and who knows? I mean, they could both be guilty. I mean, you've been associated with this man for a long time before you divorced. So who knows what you were into? For all we know, she could have just had enough of the foolishness. I can't imagine how a wife can be married that long and not know something about what you're going on, especially with the resources that you have nowadays, okay, to be able to track people, know everything that's going on. My point in that is that who your spouse hangs around with is important. Clearly.
It is. It really is. So that was a major blow. But, when you consider their relationship as well, it appears that they had some type of agreement. Now, prior to them getting married, he was involved with another woman and asked the other woman for permission to marry his wife. And then a part of their agreement once they got married was, listen, once a year for a long weekend, I want to go away and still remain connected to my previous girlfriend.
Well, that answers the question.
Yeah. So it's just like, it's almost like Pandora's box. Once you open your marriage up to one thing, you make it really susceptible to a host of other things that you may not be prepared or ready for.
Wow. I mean, this is what I call raising the hedges around your marriage, right? It's more than just what's happening inside your roof. It's actually what happens when your spouse and when you leave your home, right? Who are you associating with? What are you doing? Where are you going? All of these things matter to protect the marriage and the foundation of your family.
Listen, guys, open marriages, and it seems like that's what they had from the very beginning. And every couple have different rules that they establish if they choose to have an open marriage. And the idea is that, as long as we keep it open, as long as we're honest, everything should be good. But there is betrayal even within open marriages. We do have couples who come to us who are in tremendous pain, who have suffered infidelity, even though they had these arrangements. And somehow they think, we can have the best of both worlds and things will work. No, it can't. Listen, marriage was designed not by society, not by government, right? Not by people, but by God. And God put a particular plan in place, a system in place, and laws and rules to protect the sanctity of that relationship. And when you decide to rewrite the script and redefine what you think marriage should be, then you're opening yourself up to the possibility of things going wrong. Now, that does not mean that it's guaranteed to go right if you do it the way that God designed it, but it puts you in a better position and you have a better foundation to ensure the probability that it can go right. There is the human factor. There's the human element, and we have a tendency of messing things up. But foundationally, you have to start off right because, as we always say, the origin of a thing determines its nature. So if it starts off wrong, then you have the possibility of something that can ultimately be wrong. And now we're seeing 20 whatever years later, it all coming out in this particular marriage. So as you see other couples go through what they go through, rather than talking about them, learn from it. You can learn what to do and what not to do by taking a look at the situations that people are going through. Wouldn't you say?
I agree.
So, guys, listen, there's another thing that's happening in the news. I thought it was quite interesting. Hopefully this video plays with no problem. But it's dealing with underage marriage.
Oh my gosh.
All right, this is a topic within itself. So let's go to the video right quick and walk through this.
Child marriage is a reality in the US, and it's happening a lot. More than 200,000 children were wed over the past 15 years alone. Mostly underage girls marrying adult men, and in many cases, these girls are not going willingly. But how is this possible? Well, in all 50 states, marriage under the age of 18 is legal, thanks to a number of loopholes, typically through parental consent or court approval. And only 10 states have laws against forced marriages. Like in other parts of the world, there are many different factors playing into why it's plaguing the US as well, ranging from cultural, social, religious, and economic issues. Parents may be trying to control their child's behavior or sexuality, or use them as a means to solve financial problems. Like in the case of Daniel and Savilla Stoltzfus, who gifted their 14-year-old daughter to a Pennsylvania man who...
All right, guys.
That didn't play.
Yeah, it didn't play. So ultimately, the reason why we picked this particular video, because an article just came out in North Carolina about how they're trying to rewrite the laws to make marriage permissible for children who are 16 years of age. And I thought that was pretty problematic. I guess I didn't really go deep into age of consent across the United States. But what we have discovered is that every state has a different age. Mm-hmm. Some states' ages are lower than others. And so while you would think, oh, typically 18 years old, they're quote unquote an adult, which I mean, maybe legally they are, but you're still dealing with a child. You're still dealing with all types of immaturity, very little experience. But when you start going down to 17 years old, 16 years old, some states even 14 years old. And then there are other states that literally have no minimum, that as long as you have the consent of the parent, you can marry off a 12-year-old.
And now that, to me, that right there is red flag city, because now we got to look at the parents. That if you have parents consenting to marry your child off at 14, to me, this is where we get into that gray area. Because now, okay, we talk about sex trafficking, right, as an illegal issue out here. But now you've got parents birthing children and giving them away to men at a young age. Isn't that another version of sex trafficking? Yeah. Kind of under the guise of parental consent? It's almost like you're sliding it under the radar. A child of 14 years old. And then the fact that some states also don't have a cap, right? Because some states it is that, okay, with parental consent, you can marry at 15, but the person can't be more than 4 years older than you. There are some states that don't even have a cap on that. So you could be 60 marrying a 15 or 14-year-old because of parental consent. That to me seems like child abuse. It is. And so it just makes me wonder, who are we voting into office, and what is the mindset and the morality of the people who we vote for, who are making and passing these laws? And it just lets us know that we can't be ignorant to what's going on in the land, because we're subject to the laws of the land. And so when you may think that something's an egregious offense and you know what, you're going to pursue the law, and then you realize, wait a minute, the law's not even in my favor. It's in the favor of this particular situation. That's why we have to get involved. See, we talk about this all the time, that marriage is God's secret weapon for kingdom domination in the earth. But the marriage is not for just your benefit, but there's a purpose attached to it. And sometimes you have to step outside of your own unit and figure out what influence and what impact can we have, spreading the gospel and allowing the kingdom of God and the culture of the kingdom to spread throughout the world. And that means that we've got to take the mission and the stance that we have for marriage into the community, into the courtroom, into the school system, everywhere we go, so that it all lines up with what God has intended for us, so that we can live our best lives and have the best relationships that we can have. I agree. And, one last point just came to me as I read this. North Carolina, the age of consent is 18. With parental consent, a person can marry at 16. A person can marry at 14 with judicial consent, which is given if the person is pregnant or has given birth to a child. So you rape a child, get them pregnant, and then the court can rule that they can be married. So now there's you could be 12 because you're pregnant. And so it makes me think that we really need to get involved in our local government and know what's being voted in, because these things have to be voted into law. right? And that's the stuff that's never in the news, right? All the big issues that are in the news, you never hear something about let's marry children.
Right.
So we got to get focused, guys, and we got to be here and be the beacon of light for marriage. Like if it matters to you, you got to know what's going on in your community.
Guys, you're watching the Couples Academy show. We're just getting started. Listen, tune in. Make sure you subscribe. We're on every single morning at 9:30 a.m. on YouTube, on Facebook. Everywhere you go, we want to be there. Take us where you're at. Love you. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Take care.
If you would like to be a guest on our show, or if you're interested in one of our restoration programs,